Incredible Cowboy Who Turned Away 50 Women. Discover the surprising moment that changed everything. Jack McGraw stood alone beneath the blistering Texas sun, his eyes scanning the horizon of his father's ranch, a staggering 1,200 acres that had become his life. The land was etched in his skin, embedded in his very soul. Yet, as summer began to wrap her arms around the dry earth, whispers snaked through the community, wrapping around his heart with an insidious grip. A developer, a slick, sharp-suited man who promised a luxury resort, had set his sights on Jack's ancestral home. Jack felt like a cornered animal, every muscle taut, every instinct warning him of the approaching storm. The weight of betrayal gnawed at him. Once supportive neighbors seemed to flaunt their loyalty like it was an auction item, some already visualizing the wealth and success teetering before them. 50 women had once sought his heart, and he'd coldly turned them away, holding on to the delusion that love was built on mutual respect. Yet here he was now, isolated, fighting for a land in danger, and wrestling with the very foundation of his existence. What if he lost it all, not just the ranch, but the legacy woven through generations? That night, Jack tossed and turned, sleep a distant memory. Anxiety twisted and turned inside him like a roiling storm cloud, and doubt crept in like a thief. Did he cling to the ranch at the cost of everything else? He could almost hear Lucas's voice echoing through his thoughts. "Jack, it's time to let someone in." Before he could chase away that tantalizing notion, a flicker of hope landed unexpectedly in his path. Cleaning out his grandfather's attic, he stumbled upon a dusty box filled with letters. Each envelope was a heartbeat of his family's narrative. Vivid tales of endurance through economic hardships and the fight against heartbreak. The ink spoke of a great-great-grandfather who faced insurmountable odds much like Jack now did, battling for land and love. But it was in the month prior that fate intervened in the form of Anna. The waitress's laughter danced through the diner like sunlight splattering onto the rustic wooden tables. With every conversation, she tore down the barriers he'd constructed around his heart, forcing him to reconsider the confines he deemed necessary. Thoughts of Anna filled his mind. Could vulnerability provide a stronger foothold than stubborn dedication? As he turned those questions over, unease coiled tighter in his gut. He couldn't afford to be distracted now. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. And then came the storm. Dark clouds churned ominously, a tempest brewing, as if nature reflected the turmoil within. Wind howled, branches snapped, and rain plummeted, pummeling the earth with a ferocity that mirrored Jack's racing mind. He stood amidst the chaos, battling with a desperate choice. Stay loyal to the land that had shaped him, or leap into the unpredictable waters of a budding romance with Anna? The very ground beneath him threatened to slip away, and his heart thundered in his chest. Would he be able to save the ranch, or would love have to come second to family legacy? As the storm raged, his world hung in the balance, and Jack felt a terror unlike any he'd ever known. What if he lost everything, including Anna? At that moment, swirling in uncertainty and anguish, he faced the question that could unravel him. When the storm subsided, what world would remain? Jack woke to an eerie stillness, the storm having swept away the tumult but leaving the remnants of anxiety hanging thick in the air. The sunlight broke through the clouds, casting an unearthly glow over the drenched earth. But for Jack, it was a mockery of the clarity he sought. The serenity that followed the chaos felt like a deceptive calm before a more menacing storm. He'd wrestled not only with nature, but with the very essence of his life's purpose. He stumbled out of bed, weary yet restless. Each drop of moisture glistening on the grass whispered of possibilities, but they were drowned out by the thunderous implications of his choices. The developer's arrival loomed over him like a shadow. How had he let things reach this boiling point? Perhaps he was right to turn away the 50 women who had crossed his path. Perhaps focusing solely on the ranch had made him a stronger man. Until now. As if drawn by an unspoken force, Jack found himself again in his grandfather's attic, the box of letters calling him like an old friend. As he sifted through the aged pages, narratives of courage and love revealed themselves. Unbeknownst to him, it was not merely a historical record, it was a mirror reflecting his own vulnerabilities. How many generations had fought to preserve this land? Each struggle felt like a slap to his rationalizations, compelling him to consider that perhaps holding on to the ranch was just as vital as the relationship he was neglecting with Anna. What had he done to push her away? Jack gripped one letter in particular, a fading correspondence from his great-great-grandfather, discussing not only the land, but also the sacrifices he made for love. The patriarch had faced opposition and had fought with just as much fervor for his family as he did for the ranch. Jack realized then that he had somehow accepted a flawed notion. Loyalty was not synonymous with isolation. What had he done to push her away? Jack gripped one letter in particular, a fading correspondence from his great-great-grandfather, discussing not only the land, but also the sacrifices he made for love. The patriarch had faced opposition and had fought with just as much fervor for his family as he did for the ranch. Jack realized then that he had somehow accepted a flawed notion. Loyalty was not synonymous with isolation. He needed to redefine what legacy meant. Was it simply holding on to land, or was it the bonds that strengthened with time? His phone buzzed with a message, sharp and insistent, rousing him from his reverie. It was Anna. "Just checking in. Don't forget to breathe. Call me when you can." Her words pierced through the fog of his loneliness, igniting a flicker of warmth against the cold dread coiling in his stomach. He paused, heart racing at the thought of dialing her number, envisioning her smile, a balm against the uncertainty threatening to consume him. But could he allow himself to bridge the chasm he'd created? The thought of being vulnerable crushed against the reality of everything at stake. What if she held expectations he couldn't meet? Or worse, what if, in the end, he was forced to choose between the ranch and her? Frustration clawed at him. He had always thought himself unwavering, a stoic protector of his heritage. Yet everything felt now like a brittle facade, barely sustainable under the relentless pressure of choice. Gathering his resolve, Jack stepped outside. The air tasted fresh, bursting with the scent of damp earth and life anew. He walked towards the corral, every step pulling him further from fear and closer to clarity. Each beat of nature resonated with the conviction that maybe, just maybe, the ranch could endure not just because of his strength, but through love, through partnership. Tension bottled in his chest as he drew closer to Anna, thoughts colliding with an urgency propelling him forward. The time had come to examine not only what he wanted to preserve, but also what he wanted to fight for. Buckling down on his determination, he realized he couldn't face this storm alone anymore. He wouldn't just hold on to the land, he needed to share it with someone who breathed life into it. As he made his decision, Jack pulled out his phone, hesitating just long enough to let the weight of destiny settle upon him. What would Anna say when he finally reached out? The unresolved dialogue hung in the air, drawing him to one undeniable question. Was he ready to claim both her heart and his heritage before the storm returned? Jack inhaled deeply, summoning the courage to press her name on the screen. This minor action felt monumental. He thought about Anna's laughter, how it spiraled around him like light on the darkest days. Yet with every heartbeat, doubts wrestled within him, jagged and relentless. The ranch had been his fortress, an emblem of everything he'd ever fought for, but maintaining his inheritance felt burdensome alone. As he scrolled through past messages, memories flooded back. Their shared moments, each one vibrant and tinged with unfulfilled potential. He could hear her voice in his head now, asking him to just be honest. But honesty demanded vulnerability, and in accepting that he had grown distant, Jack felt exposed. The ranch had been his sole focus, a misguided testament to strength. As he scrolled through past messages, memories flooded back. Their shared moments, each one vibrant and tinged with unfulfilled potential. He could hear her voice in his head now, asking him to just be honest. But honesty demanded vulnerability, and in accepting that he had grown distant, Jack felt exposed. The ranch had been his sole focus, a misguided testament to strength. As he scrolled through past messages, memories flooded back. Their shared moments, each one vibrant and tinged with unfulfilled potential. He could hear her voice in his head now, asking him to just be honest. But honesty demanded vulnerability, and in accepting that he had grown distant, Jack felt exposed. The ranch had been his sole focus, a misguided testament to strength. Yet, what had that strength granted him? A solitude that echoed louder than the howls of the wind riding through the hills. His thumb hovered over the call button, a minuscule yet intimidating choice. What if she had moved on? Perhaps he was too late. The uncertainty gnawed at him, but then the visions of his grandfather's letters surged back. Each sacrifice outlined within those pages had leveraged love as a cornerstone of endurance. His forefathers didn't just battle for land, they fought for family, their very essence of survival tied to those they cherished. He took another deep breath, fortified by the clarity that coursed through him. He could fight for both, Anna and the ranch. Those were not mutually exclusive paths. Squeezing his eyes shut, he released the button, initiating the call. The phone rang with a piercing, exhilarating urgency that sent an electric jolt through him, each tone a reminder of the risk he was willing to take. "Hello?" Her voice pierced the weighty silence, and suddenly its warmth enveloped him. "Anna, it's Jack." The name slipped from his mouth like a long-forgotten incantation, both familiar and foreign as it filled the space between them. "Jack, I wasn't sure if you'd call," she said, joy flickering through the line. His heart swelled, hope buoying around the edges of his trepidation. "Is everything all right?" "Not entirely. I've been thinking." His words faltered, and he grappled for composure. "About us, about the ranch, about what it means to—" "Jack, I know things have been complicated, but you don't have to explain yourself." Her voice softened, an anchor amidst a storm brewing in his mind. "No, I need to," he interrupted, steadier now. "I kept pushing you away because I thought strength meant solitude, but I realize now that holding on to the ranch shouldn't come at the cost of losing you." A silence unfurled from her end, charged with unspoken thoughts. Jack held his breath, anxiety spiraling from anticipation. Did she understand the weight of his confession? Was she willing to embrace the vulnerabilities he'd laid bare? "I appreciate you saying that, Jack," Anna finally replied, but her tone spoke of uncertainty. "But what does this mean for us, for you and the ranch? It's a lot." He could almost hear her weighing the gravity of everything. In that moment, Jack instinctively knew this wasn't merely a conversation. This was a reckoning, a crossroads. What lay ahead now was more complex than he anticipated. "I don't want to choose one over the other. I want you to be a part of this, the ranch, my life." His voice trembled slightly, revealing an unguarded honesty that felt liberating. "I need time to think, Jack." Her voice had shifted. It was steady but laced with concern. "You can't ask me to take a step when you're still figuring things out." With each word, reality crashed down like the remnants of the storm. Jack had awakened a truth that may not yet be fully formed. "Take all the time you need," he offered, this unexpected acceptance loosening a knot tightening in his chest. "But I won't give up on us." As they concluded the call, uncertainty still lingered like the clouds that shadowed the sun. Jack stood alone, absorbing the outpouring of emotions, the fear of loss mingling with the hope of new beginnings. Perhaps this was the storm he had to face, not just for the land, but for love itself. Determined to reconcile his desires, Jack moved toward his father's old workshop, believing that nurturing both his heritage and relationship would demand more than just resolve. It would require a fierce commitment to rebuild from the ground up. What tools did he possess that could mend this rift? As the sun sank lower in the sky, casting whimsical shadows, Jack contemplated his next steps, his mind whirring with possibilities. He was ready to chart a course, to confront not only the developer threatening his ranch, but to navigate the emotions swirling around Anna. The time had come to take action, to confront the true storm head on. What Jack didn't know was that an unexpected visit would soon lead him to discover a part of himself he never knew he possessed. Jack pushed open the door to the workshop, the familiar creak of aged wood wrapped around him like a warm embrace. It was his sanctuary, a place where he could make sense of the chaos that surrounded him. Tools hung neatly on the wall, memories of projects past lingering in the air. Yet today they felt inadequate to handle the monumental task he now faced, bridging the gap between his heart and the legacy he had inherited. He moved to the workbench, scattering aside dust that had settled like a blanket over time. Each tool represented a promise, an idea waiting to be built. But he had a new project's urgency pressing on his mind. The tangible worry for the ranch, a looming developer ready to take everything from him, paled in comparison to the deeper, more immediate weight, the chance to rekindle his connection with Anna. The time had come to take action, to confront the true storm head on. What Jack didn't know was that an unexpected visit would soon lead him to discover a part of himself he never knew he possessed. Jack pushed open the door to the workshop, the familiar creak of aged wood wrapped around him like a warm embrace. It was his sanctuary, a place where he could make sense of the chaos that surrounded him. Tools hung neatly on the wall, memories of projects past lingering in the air. Yet today they felt inadequate to handle the monumental task he now faced, bridging the gap between his heart and the legacy he had inherited. He moved to the workbench, scattering aside dust that had settled like a blanket over time. Each tool represented a promise, an idea waiting to be built. But he had a new project's urgency pressing on his mind.
The tangible worry for the ranch, a looming developer ready to take everything from him, paled in comparison to the deeper, more immediate weight, the chance to rekindle his connection with Anna. His hands instinctively reached for a rusted hammer, its familiar heft grounding him. He thought back to the last conversation they had. Anna's tentative tone echoed in his mind. "I need time to think." Those words nagged at him, leaving a bitter taste. Could he afford to give her time, or would it lead to a permanence that frightened him? Jack closed his eyes, visualizing the conversations they used to have, filled with laughter and dreams woven together. He had distanced himself so much that now every thought of her brought a crystalline ache, a reminder of what he risked losing. Strength, he recalled, wasn't just in holding on. It was in the courage to pursue what truly mattered. With renewed purpose, Jack began to methodically arrange tools, aligning his inner struggle with the patterns they formed. Screwdrivers, pliers, chisels, they became symbolic, each representing facets of his life: work, love, ambition.
And as he positioned them in a line, a thought struck him. Perhaps he needed to repair more than the ranch. Maybe he needed to repair himself. That small realization ignited a fire within him. This was more than sorting tools. It was about redefining his role in his own narrative. He had always believed he had to shoulder burdens alone, but that mindset had caused more harm than good. The legacy of the ranch could not be isolated from the heart he was trying to heal. Just then, the faint sound of footsteps pulled him from his introspection. The door swung open with a gentle push, revealing an unexpected visitor. Liam, his childhood friend and confidant. The weathered lines on Liam's face deepened with concern. "You all right, Jack?" he asked, his voice cutting through the haze of Jack's thoughts. "I'm figuring things out," Jack replied, his gaze shifting back to the workbench. "I called Anna, told her I wanted to be honest about everything, about the ranch, about us." Liam stepped inside, a keen observer of Jack's internal battle. "And what's next?" "I'm not sure," Jack sighed. "I'm grappling with the idea of who I was and who I want to be. It feels bigger than just the ranch. It's about connecting with people, letting them in instead of pushing them away." "That takes guts," Liam remarked, crossing his arms over his weathered flannel shirt. "But you can't expect it to change overnight. You're not just fighting the developers, you're fighting your own fears, Jack." Jack straightened, the gravity of Liam's words grounding him. "I've been building walls, thinking solitude was strength. It's time I start tearing them down." "Then do it," Liam encouraged. "Bring your fight to them. You've got your grandfather's spirit running through you. Honor that legacy, not just by protecting the land, but by living fully." The weight of that responsibility settled heavily but comfortably on his shoulders. It blended with an emerging sense of clarity. The stakes were higher than he perceived. His relationships and future were intertwined with the fate of the ranch. It wasn't just land, it was home, a place that could still hold Anna's laughter. Realization flooded through him. He had to confront the developer, yes, but he also had to confront his own reluctance to embrace vulnerability. With a steady heartbeat, Jack began plotting a course, strategies carving themselves out in his mind like fresh lines in timber. As he laid out his next steps, a sense of urgency welled up within him, a fire that would not be easily extinguished. What tools would he wield in this confrontation? How could he negotiate not only for the future of the ranch, but for the future he envisioned with Anna? Before he could romanticize it too much, Liam's voice reminded him, "Are you ready to face your storm, Jack?" Jack nodded slowly, the weight of anticipation palpable. "It's time to show them, and myself, that I can be both."
It's time to rebuild.
As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the workshop floor, Jack felt a surge of empowerment. Tomorrow wouldn't just be about reclaiming the land, but about reclaiming his story. He would have to navigate uncharted waters, but deep down he sensed that this journey of self-discovery had only just begun. There was no way to predict what the confrontation with the developer would lead to, or how Anna would respond to his new resolve. But one thing was sure: he was no longer the man afraid of losing everything. He was ready to fight. The storm awaited him, and he was prepared to meet it. Little did Jack know, a revelation on the horizon would challenge everything he thought he understood about love and legacy. As dawn broke the following day, Jack found himself unable to sit still in the workshop. The inner tools that had felt inadequate just hours before now seemed charged with potential. He paced back and forth, his mind racing with a myriad of strategies to tackle both the impending showdown with the developer and his desire to reach out to Anna. The urgency knotted his stomach, each step reverberating with the weight of his resolve. In the faint morning light, Jack grabbed a stack of papers from the desk. Documents outlining previous negotiations on the ranch and potential initiatives he had once dismissed. They seemed like relics of a life he had almost forgotten, but today they felt like blueprints for a new path forward. His hand trembled slightly as he rifled through them, flipping to the section that described land use policies. The developer had laid quite the plan to transform the ranch into a commercial complex, erasing generations of history. He couldn't let that happen, not without a fight. As he examined the papers, Jack's phone buzzed against the table, startling him. It was a text from Anna, a simple question that sent adrenaline coursing through him. The past week had been a cavernous silence between them, and suddenly a thread of connection sparked against the backdrop of his uncertainty. "Yeah, I do." He quickly shot back a response, and as he waited for her reply, a vision formed in his mind, one where he stood not just as a protector of the land, but as a partner willing to share his insecurities and dreams. Today wasn't merely about voicing his case to the developer. It would also be about showing Anna who he truly wanted to be. Vulnerability would be his greatest weapon. After a moment, her response appeared. "How about we meet at the creek around noon?" A wave of relief washed over him. The hushed conversations they'd shared by the water had always carried a weight that felt more meaningful than verbal exchanges. He could picture the sunlight dappling through the trees, casting dancing reflections on the bubbling surface. A perfect opportunity. He could open up to her in a space where they both felt safe. As he prepared to leave the workshop, a decision weighed heavily in his mind. Would he share everything? The developer's plans, his struggles, and how deeply he valued her presence in his life? The thought terrified him, yet a counter-thought emerged. What if this honesty drew them closer, giving the ancient ties of their shared past a chance to flourish anew? Jack strapped on his worn hat, stepping outside as a fresh breeze brushed against his face. The air felt charged with possibility. He took a deep breath, savoring the aroma of earth mixed with the scent of growing grass. Nature was stirring itself awake, mirroring his internal drive to shake off the dust of complacency. The looming confrontation at the creek and the potential clash with the developer pulsed like twin hearts within him, both demanding expression. As he reached the creek, Jack watched the water flow over smooth stones, pondering how life, like the river, washed away what no longer served to create space for something new. Just as he was about to sit down on a nearby rock, a movement caught his eye. It was Anna, making her way toward him, her face a mix of anticipation and unease. "Hey," her voice trembled slightly, betraying the calm facade she attempted to present. "Hey," he replied, trying to match her energy. "I'm really glad you're here."
The moment lingered, both fragile and electric, as they exchanged glances that spoke of unhealed wounds and unuttered confessions. He knew the conversation could reshape everything for both of them. Just then, the sound of distant machinery thundered in the background, a stark reminder of the fight that awaited him. "Can we talk about us?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack felt the weight of the moment pressing down on him, both exhilarating and intimidating. This was it. His chance to confront his past decisions, his fears, and potentially forge a new future with Anna by his side. But first, he had to summon every ounce of honesty he possessed. "Yeah, we can," he said, drawing a deep breath as the repercussions of their conversation loomed ahead like a storm cloud. Unbeknownst to him, the battle for the ranch would shift with every word spoken in this very creek. The turning point of his life was unfolding, and it felt as if the storm that awaited was merely the prelude to an even greater revelation. What would he discover about himself as they navigated both the treacherous waters of their relationship and the challenges that lay ahead? Jack's heart raced in the stillness of the creek, the soft rustle of leaves around them a gentle backdrop to the storm brewing within him. He struggled to reconcile the tension between his professional fight and personal musings, each heartbeat echoing the gravity of the impending conversation. "Us," he repeated, the weight of the word settling into the water's reflection. What could they possibly be?
Their history had been a patchwork of fragmented moments and shared laughter, now threatened by silence and distance. His instinct screamed at him to approach the topic deftly, gently, but the developer's looming threat gnawed at his resolve. Anna began, her gaze directed at the creek's flow. "I've been thinking about us a lot, about where we stand. I miss what we had." Missing it wasn't enough, though. Jack felt a knot in his throat. He wanted to mirror her honesty, to reveal his vulnerability with a clarity that stripped away pretense, but the fear of rejection loomed large. He took a deep breath, forcing his words out with sincerity. "I miss it, too, but things have changed, and I'm not the same person you knew back then." He saw her nod, and her eyes reflected a kind of understanding that sent a surge of warmth through him. Here at the creek, where they had spent countless hours together, Jack realized it was the first step to navigating the difficult waters ahead, not just in their relationship, but in his battle for the ranch. "You're right, we can't just go back to what it was." Anna snapped her gaze to meet his, determination etched on her brow. "We have to confront what's happening now. The developer, it's like they're trying to erase everything we know." A sudden rush of anger filled Jack as he recalled the maps and documents he'd sifted through. "That's exactly what I plan to do. I can't let them take everything away without at least trying to fight back." The words surged from him, fueled by a newfound confidence. He wasn't just fighting for land. He was standing up for his history, what shaped him, against those who would demolish it for profit. The distant machinery reverberated through the woods again, cutting through their intimate moment sharply, a harsh reminder of the world pressing in on them. Jack's fists clenched unconsciously. He knew this fight wasn't just about the ranch. It was about proving to Anna that he could be more than the man who had once faltered. "Are you in?" He caught Anna's gaze, steadying himself with the resolve to include her in his fight. Their relationship had faltered under unsaid words and misunderstandings, but this was a chance to redefine their partnership, both emotionally and in their shared goals. "I need to be," she replied, her voice unwavering now. "If you're going to confront them, I want to help, Jack. I believe in what we can do together." Jack marveled at how her commitment lit a fire within him. Suddenly, he didn't feel alone in facing the impending battle. The emotional currents flowing between them, coupled with their shared desire to protect the ranch, formed a bond stronger than he'd anticipated. With a deep breath, Jack stood firm in his decision, slowly mapping out a plan in his mind. They would gather the community, lay out their argument, and utilize every bit of evidence he'd researched to combat what loomed ahead. But the prospect of combining it with developing his relationship with Anna filled him with a resolve that he hadn't known in years. Yet another thought pierced through the excitement, the fear of failing her again. Could he really combine this fight for the ranch with a fight for his own heart? As Jack looked into Anna's determined eyes, a new wave of anxiety hit him. But this time, fear couldn't dictate his actions. He realized that true growth requires confronting fear head-on, not just in the fight for land, but in love as well. With a resolve that felt like a promise, Jack nodded to Anna, signaling an unspoken agreement tethered tightly by shared purpose. They would laugh, cry, but more importantly, confront their demons together. "Then let's start by talking to everyone we can tomorrow," Jack said, suspense bubbling within him as he spoke aloud his intentions. As light danced on the stream, something caught their attention, a figure approaching through the thicket. Caught between their futures and a past that clung to them like a stubborn shadow, Jack's heart sank. It was the developer's representative. The time had come to face the very real consequences of their actions. Would this encounter bring renewed hope or deepen their uncertainties? Jack's breath hitched in his throat as he recognized the imposing figure striding through the underbrush, a stark contrast to the tranquil settings of the creek. The representative's sharp suit seemed out of place against the backdrop of swaying trees and babbling water, a reminder of the urban sprawl encroaching on the serenity he cherished. He clenched his fists, grounding himself, emotions swirling between anger, anxiety, and determination. "Who is that?" Anna whispered, her presence at his side both a comfort and a reminder of what stood at stake. "Just the person trying to take everything from us," Jack replied softly, his eyes narrowing. The man was now almost upon them, a confident gait suggesting he was accustomed to having his way. Jack fought the urge to retreat. Confrontation was inevitable, and he needed to stand firm. "Mr. Armitage," the developer's representative greeted smoothly as he reached them, his expression one of practiced indifference. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." The way he said it made Jack's skin crawl. "No, just contemplating the loss of our future," Jack shot back, an edge creeping into his voice. The representative raised an eyebrow, an amused smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. "I assure you, nothing is being lost. Quite the opposite. This land will be transformed into a vibrant community hub." Jack found it sickening how the man spoke of destruction in euphemisms, and he could feel Anna tense beside him. "You mean a construction site for your profit," Jack countered, searching for the strongest counter-argument. He drew on the evidence he had collected, pages of plans, community sentiment, and personal anecdotes, a collective narrative against the faceless greed driving the developer's agenda. The representative laughed lightly, an empty sound. "You really think a few old memories can stop progress?" His patronizing tone stung, but Jack pressed on, harnessing the fire inside him. "Those memories are what make this land worth fighting for. It's not just a plot on a map, it's our history, our heritage." The conviction in Jack's voice surprised even him. Here, standing in the shadow of his fears, he found the courage to defend something deeper than land. It was the very essence of who he was. He glanced at Anna, her gaze steady, encouraging him to continue. "Think about what you're doing. You'll rip apart families and erase generations of stories. Isn't there something more worthy about preserving that? About promoting sustainable growth rather than profit at all costs?" For a fleeting moment, doubt flickered across the representative's face. The shift was subtle but tangible.
Sensing his chance, Jack pressed on, now attuned to his own voice and the words spilling forth like water from the creek. People here deserve a chance. They deserve to see the unicorns of opportunity, not the day-to-day grind offered by yet another soulless chain store. The representative folded his arms, expression hardening. "I'll be frank, Mr. Armitage. Your ineffectual nostalgia won't halt our project. But if you're willing to negotiate, we can perhaps find common ground." Jack could feel the weight of the moment change. This was the tactical negotiation he had considered in isolation, now manifesting in front of him. But what was he willing to give up? "Negotiation over what?" he began, feet rooted as the momentum shifted. "Do you think our lives and dreams can be bought?" Anna's hand found his, grounding him further. "Jack," she whispered, urging him to temper his rising frustration. "This isn't just an emotional appeal anymore. We need evidence. We need data." Her insight broke through the haze. Jack realized they needed to structure their fight, to legally oppose this encroachment. "We'll build our case, and we'll use everything you've thrown at us against you," he stated, taking control of the conversation. The representative smirked again, but his confidence seemed shaken. "Good luck with that, but my timeline waits for no one." As he turned to leave, Jack felt a mixture of exhilaration and dread wash over him. Their battle had begun, but what would it cost him personally to see it through? Could this confrontation quell his insecurities, not just about the ranch, but also about Anna, about their future? "Tomorrow we take our next steps," Jack said, determination layering over uncertainty. Anna nodded, her faith in him shining through the shadow of doubt that crept under his skin. But as the representative disappeared into the thickening trees, Jack's heart sank.
"Thank you all for coming," Jack began, his voice steady as he took center stage amidst shared histories and wary faces. "Today, we confront not just a threat to our home, but an opportunity to redefine our community's future." He paused, keenly aware that every eye in the room was locked onto him, waiting for clarity and assurance. "We need numbers, we need data, and we need to be united. Above all, we must stand together, not just as defenders of a piece of land, but as stewards of our shared heritage." He felt the energy shift. There was a pulse of agreement, a stirring of collective resolve that electrified the air. Yet beneath that surface, layers of uncertainty flickered. Was he qualified to lead this charge? Could he truly inspire the community to join him? Anna interjected periodically, providing additional insights that grounded their discussion in actionable steps. Together, they mapped out a strategy, a series of community meetings, outreach initiatives, and appearances at council meetings to present their collective stance. It suddenly felt tangible, their future constructed from the sweat of their brows and the strength of their unity. As they concluded the meeting, gratitude glimmered in the eyes of those gathered, but lingering beneath it was urgency. Jack found himself consumed by the dual responsibilities of shaping a rhetoric that could unite while grappling with the unsettling prospect of disappointing those who believed in him. As they stepped out into the fading light, a vision crystallized in Jack's mind. He wanted to be more than a mere bystander. He wanted to carve a path towards something greater, a legacy that breathed life into their dreams. "Jack," Anna said softly, drawing him from his reverie, "are you okay?" He turned to her, the weight of the day visibly relaxing in her presence. "I'm just feeling the pressure, I guess. What if I can't hold it together?" Her grip tightened around his arm reassuringly. "You've already shown more resolve than I've seen in anyone. You're not just fighting for the land, you're fighting for all of us." The sincerity of her words steadied him,
igniting a renewed sense of purpose. But as they drove home along the winding road, the weight of the anticipation loomed larger. The representative would respond, and their battle was far from over. What would happen when the next round of negotiations began? Could his resolve withstand the scrutiny that lay ahead? The dawning realization settled in. This was no longer just about preservation. It was also a personal transformation, a test of who he could become, or perhaps who he would have to sacrifice along the way. The moment of truth loomed closer. He could only hope his courage would carry him through. As dawn broke, Jack awoke to a bitter wind sweeping through the cracks in the windows of his small bedroom. The chill crawled under his skin, shaking him from sleep and dragging him back to the reality of his situation.
Last night he had pored over strategies for the negotiations ahead, and with each passing thought the anxiety had only intensified. Today would be different. It had to be. If he wanted to lead, he needed to embody strength and unyielding resolve. In the quiet of the morning, he donned a worn denim jacket, a fabric that had seen battles of its own, and allowed it to ground him. He stepped outside, the familiar scent of damp earth and pine wafting through the air, filling his lungs with a sense of purpose. He would confront his fears head-on, shake off the lingering doubts that clung to him like shadows. The land, the community, he was no longer just a guardian. He was their voice, their advocate. After breakfast, Anna arrived, her face brightened by the morning sun. "Ready to dive into the fray?" she asked, tossing him a faint smile that helped alleviate the tight knot in his stomach. "You know this next meeting is critical. It can shift everything." "Yeah, I know," he replied, his voice steady but his mind racing. He had spent the last few nights rehearsing his speech, structuring arguments that fluctuated between fact and sentiment. It would have to be more than mere numbers on paper. He needed to connect on an emotional level. As they drove, thoughts tangled in Jack's head. Would people resonate with his vision? Would they be moved by his passion, or merely see him as a voice in the ether? Upon arrival, the venue seemed larger and more intimidating than he remembered. It buzzed with murmurs and the shifting anticipation of a crowd waiting for change. As he walked toward the front, he noticed the faces of his neighbors, some hopeful, some apprehensive. Their expressions reflected back to him the pressure he felt, the weight of their expectations resting firmly on his shoulders. Jack addressed the gathering, anchoring himself as he inhaled deeply and outlined their plight. With measured conviction, he articulated their connection to the land, highlighting the economic and cultural stakes involved. As words spilled forth, deep-seated emotions bubbled to the surface, fueling his momentum. "We are not just protecting structures," he emphasized, his tone rising. "We are defending our heritage, our hearts." The audience stirred, a ripple of thought processing the significance of his words. Reactions began to shift. Heads nodded, murmurs of agreement twinkled through the crowd. But he felt an impending threat tightening around him like a noose. Doubt flickered again. Was this moment a build-up to triumph or a precursor to failure? Anna caught his eye, mouthing silent encouragement. Her faith flared hope in his chest. He concluded by calling for unity and action, urging them into a collective effort that exceeded mere debate. But instead of applause, a challenging voice cut through the air. A familiar local businessman, Jack's childhood rival, stood up. "I hear your concerns, Jack, but these changes could bring jobs and growth." Sacrifices are a part of progress. Every word from the man felt like a serrated edge digging into the heart of Jack's convictions. The room fell into silence, his stomach twisting, and he felt a surge of dread. Could he withstand this? Would his voice falter under the pressure of confrontation? Swallowing hard, Jack steadied himself. He was being called to act, not just as a spokesperson, but as a defender of values that had been instilled in him since childhood. As he prepared to respond, he sensed an awakening within. This was bigger than just a debate. It was a battle for identity, for what they stood for. The moment had arrived for him to forge his path, to silence not only the man before him, but the insecurities that clouded his judgment. Pushing past the initial wave of doubt, Jack locked eyes with a few close neighbors, seeking understanding and solidarity. He opened his mouth to respond, to challenge the notions being paraded as absolute. It was time to confront not just the opponent, but who he had become in the process. As he began to speak, a sense of clarity propelled his words forward. He was carving out his legacy, and whatever the outcome, he was no longer just Jack. He was the embodiment of the land's resilience. With the echoes of his own voice ringing in his ears, he felt empowered. But questions swirled in his mind. Would his passion be enough? What might the repercussions be for his community if he failed? The tension charged the air as he faced his rival, ready to declare the values that had shaped him. But before he could drop the hammer of his convictions, another voice arose in the audience, a voice he never expected to hear. "Jack, I have a different perspective to share." The uncertainty loomed again, and just as the path ahead began to clear, the stakes elevated further. He braced for a confrontation that would challenge everything he had stood for. Jack McGraw stood in the aftermath of the heated meeting, the room still vibrating with the echoes of debate. The stakes had never felt higher, yet amidst the chaos, a newfound clarity coursed through him. Gone was the timid man shackled by fear. In his place stood a determined individual, ready to claim both his heritage and his heart. The previous day's storm had been but a prelude to the maelstrom he was now prepared to navigate, a tempest of love, legacy, and resolution. As he left the meeting and stepped outside, the sun bathed him in warmth, as if to signal a renewed beginning. He took a moment to breathe in the Texas air, feeling a deep-seated connection pulsate through him, a reminder of the land he fought for. The whispers of uncertainty still lingered, but this time Jack acknowledged them as he would an old friend. They could fuel his resolve rather than diminish it. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Anna's name illuminated the screen. A rush of anxiety stirred within him, but he pressed down on it with the reassurance of clarity. Today, he wouldn't allow fear to dictate his actions. He pressed dial. "Hey," she answered, her voice a soft melody in an otherwise frenzied world. "Can we meet at the creek again?" Jack proposed, not just for negotiations, but for honest conversation, both of them navigating the choppy waters of their feelings while fending off the invading storm. "Of course, I'll be there." Jack arrived first, seated on a rock, gazing into the clear flow of water gently cascading over stones. It mirrored his own tumultuous thoughts. Everything felt interconnected, each rivulet whispering wisdom about resilience, change, and potential. When Anna arrived, her eyes sparkled with unfiltered energy, offering a sense of comfort amidst the uncertainty still lurking in their hearts. "You were incredible in there, by the way," she smiled, a slight blush creeping across her cheeks. Jack could feel pride swell in his chest, not from the accolades, but from the realization that he had stepped up when it mattered most. "Thanks, it's just the beginning, though. The fight isn't over." "Then we need to fortify our strategy. Did you think about what to present to the community next?" Anna asked, her voice earnest, full of potential for collaboration. Absolutely, but I also want to focus on our relationship. I can't let the fight for the ranch overshadow what matters between us. It was profound for Jack to articulate this, to acknowledge the importance of embracing vulnerability while piecing together his legacy. Anna's expression softened, and she stepped closer. You don't have to shoulder everything alone, Jack. I'm here, in every way. A warm blush spread across his cheeks, gratitude flooding him. This partnership wasn't merely a merger of romantic inclinations. It was a fusion of their individual strengths and values. They were co-founding a legacy anchored in love, guided by purpose. As they began to sketch out the next steps, how to gather more testimonies about the land, engage the local businesses, and prepare for the forthcoming council meeting, Jack felt the energy between them buzz like electricity. It wasn't just about community advocacy. It was also about claiming his space and welcoming Anna wholeheartedly into a shared future. I can't let the need for perceived strength define me anymore, Jack confessed, almost in admission. I've realized that enduring legacies are built on collaboration, not isolation. Anna squeezed Jack's hand, grounding him in the newfound truth that together they could withstand storms, both familial and romantic. Exactly, we're better together, she affirmed, eyes bright with unshakable faith. With every moment they shared, Jack felt barriers of uncertainty dissolve. He couldn't ignore the fact that the next confrontation with the developer was looming closer, but he understood that cultivating a strong alliance with Anna would arm him against anything. He turned to her, resolute, and spoke the words that had been aching to escape. If the ranch is my legacy, then so is this relationship. I want us to build something that stands the test of time, just like this land. I'm ready to invite all of it in, love, vulnerability, and the embrace of our shared fight. Tears glistened in Anna's eyes, a testament to the emotional overlap that was shaping their reality. I don't want to just hold on to the ranch as an idea. Let's create a future that transforms it into a beacon of hope and possibility. With that, Jack took a moment to feel the magnitude of their transformative conversation. The blend of the personal and the professional, a symbiotic awakening that would fuel both their efforts. Days turned into weeks as their renewed relationship intertwined with ongoing community initiatives against the development project. Jack's confidence burgeoned with each interaction, each strategy they developed to protect his legacy. The collective voice of the community surged around them, fostering strength deeper than he had ever imagined. Finally, the day arrived for Jack to present their case at the city council meeting. Standing at the podium, flanked by Anna's unwavering presence, he felt fortified by the love that had replaced isolation. As he spoke, the crowd roared in approval, chanting together for the preservation of their land. And it struck him, this wasn't just about the ranch anymore. It was about the spirit of resilience, a testament to how love and community could transform adversity into vivid futures. Jack had achieved not only a personal awakening, but a professional commitment woven through shared ideologies, and that realization invigorated him. Moments later, he heard the pivotal vote to endorse their proposal for preservation sail through amidst cheers. As the room erupted in celebration, Jack felt Anna's hand in his, the embodiment of their journey, fueled by the acceptance of vulnerability, creating a powerful legacy. Jack McGraw, the man who had once turned away 50 women, had finally embraced love alongside legacy, turning his focus not only on cultivating the land, but enriching his life with the bond they shared. And in that moment, standing at the precipice of a bright future, he held the power to thrive.
Now is your moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss future exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread these powerful narratives. Comment below with your reactions and theories on Jack's journey. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this inspiring conclusion. You need to support the channel now. It's time to demonstrate the importance of personal transformation. Don't wait even one more second.